It's late. Later than it should be, probably. You're alone in the way that only happens at night. Not just physically alone, but alone in that specific, hollow way where the world outside your window feels like it belongs to something else entirely. Maybe you've just pulled off the highway after a long shift, engine ticking as it cools in an empty parking lot. Maybe you're parked outside a gas station, radio low, not quite ready to go home yet. The kind of ordinary, forgettable moment that you would never think to remember. And then, a knock. Not loud, not frantic, just a knock, patient and deliberate, at the glass beside your head. You turn. 2 kids, standing just outside your window in the dark. You don't know where they came from. There was nothing there a moment ago. No footsteps you heard, no approaching figures in your mirrors. They're just there, dressed plainly, almost too plainly, like something assembled from a memory of what children are supposed to look like. No backpacks, no phones, no parents anywhere in sight. They're calm. That's the thing that gets you first. Not frightened, not fidgeting, not doing any of the things a lost child does. Just standing there, perfectly still, hands at their sides, watching you with an expectation that feels ancient and patient and completely out of place on a child's face. And one of them speaks. "We're lost. We just need to use your phone." Something shifts in you before your mind catches up to it. It isn't a thought. It's older than thought. Something that lives beneath language, beneath reason, in the part of the nervous system that was keeping your ancestors alive long before they had words for what was in the dark. A tightening, a drop in temperature that you feel in your chest before you feel it in the air. A sudden, absolute certainty that has nothing to do with logic and everything to do with survival. Every instinct you have, the ones evolution spent millions of years sharpening, the ones that have kept human beings alive through every dark thing this world has produced. Every single one of them is screaming the same thing. Do not engage. Do not open the door. Leave. And then one of the children shifts just slightly and looks up at you properly for the first time. And you understand why. The black-eyed children, BEKs, as they are known in the darker corners of the internet. The forums and subreddits and late-night communities where people trade these accounts like contraband, half ashamed to believe them, unable to stop. The phenomenon, if that's what we're calling it, has been documented across decades, across continents, across cultures that have no reason to be telling the same story, and yet the story is always, recognizably, the same children, the same stillness, the same formal, slightly wrong way of speaking, the same request, the same feeling that descends on witnesses before they've consciously registered that anything is wrong. The accounts are either evidence of something genuinely, deeply unexplained, or they're evidence of something almost equally unsettling. How completely and permanently a compelling story can embed itself inside the human imagination until it becomes indistinguishable from memory. Both possibilities keep you up at night if you let them. They appear as children, almost always between the ages of 6 and 16. Old enough to be out alone, young enough that your instinct is to help. They travel in pairs most often, though there are accounts of single children and, in rarer cases, larger groups. They approach at night, typically near vehicles or residential doorways. The 2 places where the boundary between your space and the outside world is thinnest, most negotiable. When they speak, witnesses consistently describe the same quality: formal, affectless, emptied of the emotional texture that belongs in a child's voice. No fear, no urgency, no warmth. The words are right, but the music underneath them is missing entirely, replaced by something that sounds to every instinct in your body, like a performance of what a child in distress sounds like, rather than the thing itself. And they always, without exception, ask for permission to enter. "Can we come inside? Will you let us in? We just need a moment of your time." The specific words change from account to account. The underlying structure never does. It is always a request. It is always framed as something small, something reasonable, something that any decent person would agree to without thinking twice. A phone call, a glass of water, a few minutes out of the cold. Witnesses describe a pull toward compliance, a sensation several have compared to something almost hypnotic, a slow erosion of the resistance they know they should be feeling. Some describe finding themselves reaching for the door handle before consciously deciding to. Some describe a period of time they cannot fully account for, standing at the threshold, hand on the lock, not quite able to remember how they got there. And underneath all of it, that feeling, that cold, sourceless, absolute dread. And then they look up, and the eyes are wrong. Not wrong in a way that takes a moment to process. Wrong in a way that bypasses processing entirely and lands somewhere much older and much deeper. Solid black, no iris, no white, no variation, no depth, no light reflected back at you. Just two dark voids in a child's face, looking at you with something that is patient and still and completely, utterly empty of anything you recognize as human. Every witness describes the same moment, the moment the eyes register, the moment the body makes a decision the mind hasn't caught up to yet. Several describe it as the moment they understood on a cellular level that whatever was standing in front of them was not what it appeared to be. Not a lost child, not a confused teenager, not anything that belongs in the world the way you understand the world to work. Something else. Something that has learned to wear the shape of something helpless. Here's where the story takes a turn that makes it stranger, not simpler. Because unlike most folklore, we have something close to a point of origin. A name, a date, a specific documented moment when this particular fear entered the cultural bloodstream. 1996, Abilene, Texas. A journalist named Brian Bethel is sitting alone in his car on a quiet street, parked beneath the glow of a movie theater marquee, writing a check in the amber light. It's the kind of ordinary errand you forget about before it's finished. A nothing moment in a nothing evening. Two boys appear at his window. He doesn't see them approach. They're simply there, the way the BEK always seem to simply be there, as if they stepped sideways out of somewhere else and landed, fully formed, in your immediate vicinity. They want a ride. Their mother is expecting them, they say. The house is not far. They just need a few minutes, a short drive, and they'll be out of his way entirely. Reasonable. Plausible. The kind of request that in daylight with other people around, you'd probably agree to without thinking. But Bethel hesitates. He describes something pulling at him, a compulsion toward compliance that frightened him precisely because he couldn't identify where it was coming from. He stalls, he asks questions, he buys himself time without quite knowing why his body is insisting that he needs it. And in that time, he looks at them properly, at their eyes. He doesn't describe what he sees slowly or with uncertainty. He locks his doors, he starts the engine, and he leaves. Quickly. He posts his account to a paranormal mailing list, one of those early internet communities that existed in the years before social media, when the web was still small enough that a single strange story could travel its full length in a matter of days. The response is immediate. People recognize what he's describing, not because they've read about it, but because they've seen it, or something like it. Within a few years, the accounts are coming from everywhere. Rural America, the United Kingdom, Eastern Europe, South America. People who have never heard the name Brian Bethel, who have never read his account, who have no apparent connection to one another or to Abilene, Texas in 1996. Describing the same children, the same stillness, the same formal speech, the same eyes, the same feeling. Skeptics, and there are reasonable ones, point to exactly this timeline as the explanation. A compelling story enters the early internet. It spreads. It seeds itself into the collective imagination of everyone who reads it, and the human mind which is exquisitely, almost embarrassingly good at finding patterns and filling in blanks, does the rest. We misread shadows. We misidentify children in poor light. We project. We confabulate. The dread we feel in those moments is real, but the cause is internal. Anxiety, hypervigilance, the particular vulnerability of being alone at night in a car or at a door. And the story gives us a shape to attach it to. It is a reasonable argument, carefully constructed, logically sound, and yet, the details that didn't appear in Bethel's account keep appearing in other people's. Because the stories keep coming, and they keep containing things nobody agreed on. A woman in rural Oregon, a knock at 2 in the morning, which is its own kind of wrong. She opens the door to find 2 children on her porch, soaking wet from head to foot, except that it hasn't rained. Not that night. Not in days. They ask, politely and formally, if they can come inside to dry off. She describes the pull toward compliance, the hand moving toward the door before her mind engaged, and underneath it, growing fast, something that had nothing to do with thought and everything to do with the oldest alarm system in the human body. The details that didn't appear in Bethel's account keep appearing in other people's. She stopped herself. She doesn't entirely know how. She closed the door. She turned the lock. And then she sat down with her back against it on the floor of her own hallway, and she stayed there until the sun came up. Too frightened to stand, too frightened to look through the peephole, too frightened to know whether the sound she couldn't quite hear from the other side of the door was footsteps leaving or something else entirely. A man in the United Kingdom, a shopping center car park long after closing, the kind of space that feels wrong at night in a way that's hard to articulate. Too large, too empty, too lit in all the wrong places. 2 children at his passenger window, the same formal, affectless speech, the same impossible stillness. He rolls his window down an inch, just an inch. And in that inch, he says, he felt something, a pressure, a pull, a sensation he describes as standing at the very edge of a decision he would not be able to come back from. As if opening that window further was not a small thing, but an irreversible one. He rolled it back up. He locked the doors. He drove without looking in his mirrors until he reached a lit road with other cars on it. The detail that recurs across accounts that Bethel never mentioned, the detail that researchers find hardest to explain away as cross-contamination, is what happens when witnesses hesitate too long. The children escalate, not loudly, not frantically, quietly, persistently, with that same unnerving patience, as if they are working through a sequence that has been prepared in advance and simply needs to be completed. We won't hurt you. We just need a moment of your time. You have to let us in. That word, have, not want, not need, have. As if the witness has misunderstood the nature of what is happening, as if their hesitation is not a choice but an error to be corrected. No one who has shared these accounts allowed the children inside. That's the thing that sits at the center of all of it, the question that every account eventually arrives at, and then leaves unanswered, because there is no answer. No one let them in, which means we don't know what happens when someone does. We have the approach, we have the request, we have the escalation, we have every detail of what it looks like from the outside. What we don't have, what we may never have, is any account of what waits on the other side of compliance, what the room looks like after you open the door, what it costs. That gap in the record is, in its own way, the most frightening thing about any of this. Whether or not you believe a single one of these accounts is literally true, one thing is certain: they didn't emerge from nothing. The black-eyed children did not invent the fear they represent. They inherited it. The motif of the dangerous entity that cannot enter without permission is so old, so widely distributed across unconnected cultures and traditions, that its origin point, if it has one, is lost somewhere in the deep past of the species. Vampires cannot cross a threshold uninvited. That rule appears in folklore from Eastern Europe to South Asia, and no one can say with certainty where it began or why it exists in so many places at once. In Japanese tradition, certain spirits and oni are bound by similar constraints. In West African spiritual practice, in the demonology of medieval Europe, in the folk beliefs of cultures that had no contact with one another, the same structure appears. The dangerous thing must ask, must be welcomed, cannot simply take. This is not coincidence, or rather, it might be coincidence, but the coincidence itself demands an explanation. Why does this particular rule appear so consistently across such different human traditions? Why, of all the ways to imagine a monster, does the human imagination keep returning to this one? The thing that wants to cross the threshold, that cannot cross it without your help, that needs something from you that only you can give. There are a few possibilities. One is that these traditions are echoes of real experiences, encounters with something genuinely bound by these rules, passed down through generations in the language available to each culture. Another is that the threshold itself carries a psychological weight so universal that every human tradition has independently developed mythology around it. The doorway is the boundary between the known and the unknown. The moment of invitation is the moment you surrender control over what enters your life. The BEK phenomenon maps onto this ancient grammar so precisely that it feels less like a new story and more like a very old one, wearing new clothes. There's another layer that's worth sitting with, separate from the question of whether any of this is real. Children, in virtually every human culture, occupy a specific symbolic position. They represent innocence, vulnerability, the thing that must be protected. The image of a child in distress is one of the most powerful triggers in the human emotional system. It bypasses skepticism, bypasses caution, bypasses the careful rational assessment we apply to almost everything else. We are wired, deeply and deliberately, to respond to it. Whatever the black-eyed children are, literal entities, cultural constructions, psychological projections, they exploit that wiring with a precision that feels almost surgical. They wear the shape of the thing most likely to disarm you. They present as vulnerable to make you forget to protect yourself. That inversion, the predator wearing the mask of the prey, is not a new idea, but it has rarely been expressed so cleanly. The theories about what the black-eyed children actually are run the full spectrum from the mundane to the cosmological, and none of them are entirely satisfying. The extraterrestrial hypothesis proposes that the black eyes are consistent with the physical descriptions of gray alien biology documented in abduction accounts. Large, dark, absorbing all light. Under this theory, the BEK are either alien-human hybrids engineered to pass at a distance, or alien entities adopting a form calculated to trigger human compliance instincts. The request for entry under this reading is not a social courtesy, but a requirement. Perhaps a biological one, perhaps a technological one. Something about the encounter requires consent that is genuinely given. The demonic interpretation is older and in some ways more internally consistent. Under virtually every demonological tradition that addresses the subject, certain entities are constrained by rules they did not choose and cannot circumvent. Rules that seem almost bureaucratic in their specificity. They must be invited. They cannot deceive about their nature if asked directly. They cannot enter consecrated ground. The invitation requirement is not a weakness, but a cosmic boundary, something woven into the structure of whatever agreement governs their existence. The BEK, under this reading, are simply very old things operating according to very old rules. And then there is the psychological explanation, which is the most grounded and perhaps the least comforting of all. The consistency of these accounts, the psychological explanation suggests, reflects not a shared external experience, but a shared internal one. The human nervous system, pushed to a certain threshold of fear and isolation, alone in a car at 2 a.m., alone at a door in the dark, produces experiences that feel external but originate within. The dread is real, the compulsion is real. The sense of something deeply, wrongly other is real. But the source is not outside the glass. It's the ancient, pre-rational part of the mind, speaking in the only language it has. Image, symbol, archetype, trying to communicate something about vulnerability and threshold, and what we risk when we open ourselves to the unknown. Maybe the black-eyed children are real entities. Maybe they are a shared dream, generated and sustained by the collective unconscious of a species that has always known, on some level, that not everything that knocks deserves an answer. Maybe they are the image our deeper mind reaches for when it needs to say something about consent and invitation and what we let across our thresholds. All three of those possibilities are, in their own way, true. If the knock comes, and for most people it won't, and for some people it already has, it will probably come at a moment like this. Not a dramatic moment, not a moment you've prepared for. A quiet, ordinary, forgettable moment when you're tired and slightly outside yourself and the world has that particular late-night quality where the familiar starts to look strange at the edges. That seems to be when they find people. In the gaps. In the moments of ordinary vulnerability, when the guard is down and the door feels like just a door, and the glass feels like just glass, and a child standing in the dark feels, for just a second, like something that simply needs help, you'll feel it before you see it. That's the one thing every account agrees on. The drop in temperature, the heaviness behind the sternum, that wordless, ancient signal that something in the dark is not what it's presenting itself as. Trust it. Don't open the door. Don't roll down the window. Whatever they tell you, that they're cold, that they're lost, that their mother is waiting, that it will only take a moment. Remember that the moment they ask for is not the moment they're describing. The ask is not for your phone or your time or a ride across town. Whatever they're asking for runs deeper than that, and once it's given, it isn't something you get back. And if they tell you that you have to, that you don't have a choice in this, that you've misunderstood what's happening, understand that the very need to tell you that is proof that you do. The choice is yours. It has always been yours. That's the one thing they cannot take from you. That's the one thing they need you to give away.